Is it functional? Okay. Hey, thank you for the introduction, and good evening, everyone. I am Prakash Kumar. I lead technology at GreenHonchos. By the way, I have stage fright, but you are a wonderful audience, so let's begin. Okay. I think this is, yeah. So many of us, I mean, we must have heard this famous Murphy's Law that goes something like, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and at the worst possible time, right? Even in the run-up to this presentation, I was thinking about it, like what can go wrong with me when I'm on stage, okay? So, but this philosophy actually motivates us to be prepared in our life and in our business, because really anything can break in our business too, right? So I want to start with one question, and that how do you monitor your e-commerce growth, and how do you ensure that you are doing it the right way, right? What could be a data-driven answer, right? So I represent technology, and I will try to approach this question from a tech perspective, right? That if we embrace the data-driven management, then what the answers could be when we are in thick of a problem, then how data can help us figure out what actually went wrong and what actually needs to be fixed, right? Okay. So the e-commerce technology has evolved over the last 1 decade, right? While earlier it used to be, it was just good enough to have a simple web page, and we just slapped together a quick cart to, enable the handshake between the consumer and the brands, and it was considered to be good enough, right? Because the expectations were not that high back a decade. But post-pandemic, especially after that COVID-19, the expectations are high, and primarily because of a dramatic shift in the consumer behavior, right? So now, the consumer is actually, the demand is getting created by the consumer, and then the technology came in to really help the D2C, and to, the technology also started shaping up, and it evolved. And it has evolved very rapidly. Now we are seeing that we have distributed applications, we have composable commerce, so quite a lot of complex technology. We are seeing the ever-increasing use of the artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, and whatnot, right? But not necessarily it has made the life easy, right? Especially for the people, especially for the team who manage the e-commerce, right? We have tens of different independent pieces of technology products, right, who speak to each other at different events. They do their handshakes. They generate hundreds of different data points, right? And if any of it actually gets broken down, then it will impact the consumer experience, right? So many a times this complex topography actually confuses even us, right? Because we have so many options even for each of these subdomains or these technology products, right? Now, the best of the talent in the team can always be on top of, what this complex topography looks like. What is my WMS, how it connects to the logistics, how my, let's say, what impacts my consumer experience the most, why I'm getting so many RTOs, etc. But, not the entire team is going to be at the same level, right? So maybe it can be simplified, okay? Now the domains and just to validate this, okay, in a recent industry survey, right, a question was asked to the brands to list down the challenges that they see as a bottleneck to their growth. Quite a few interesting challenges were noticed in that survey. Like effective execution of the tech was, one of the prime challenges. And so does, identifying the problems in time and also identifying opportunities in time, right? And interestingly, one response that came across all the responses. I mean, one challenge that came as, it was like lack of a framework to monitor their e-commerce systems effectively, right, and identify problems in time. Now, domains like supply chain, manufacturing, banking, finance, etc., these are studied well in the academics, right? So business schools teach them anyway in the management, right? But e-commerce being relatively a new domain, we do not have much of literature available for it, right? That leaves us, the industry participants, to develop a framework for ourselves. But not all the e-commerce teams have the same level of experience to create an effective framework, okay? While some e-commerce teams are just starting up with e-retail, while others have already achieved some benchmark, or they have already achieved some milestone, right? So the results of each of these frameworks could be different. We also attempted it, okay? Now, I know that without a framework, business can't run effectively, right? And every organization has some kind of a blueprint or a framework to refer to when they are, when they want to really study a challenge, or when they want to identify some problem, the root cause of a problem. Now, we also created a framework. This framework actually helps us be on top of like 195 different parameters, logs, checkpoints, and whatnot, right? And again, we won't claim that this 195 different data points is like comprehensive enough so that it will give you a complete picture, but yes, it gets you closer to get a complete picture, right? Problems could arise anywhere. It could be within your operations. Maybe operations can be made more effective, right? Your operating cost can be reduced. Maybe your customer experience can be improved a bit further, right? But the point is, what data points do you really need to check on a day-to-day basis, right? We have identified at least 10 buckets, right, that you should be checking very frequently, and ideally you should be getting data points related to that every morning in a simple email report, let's say, if we can make it that easy. So I'll just read out quickly what are those 10 main buckets around which you should have your systems in place to, a monitoring system in place. So one is, obviously, you should be checking your website stability. And again, when we say that website stability, it should be a data-driven answer. So for example, we look at the 15 different data points in that bucket. Okay. Then we should have checks around operations. We should have checks around like marketing, customer experience. Then we have one unique method of looking at the entire customer journey. We call it a funnel map view. We'll look at it very soon in this session. Then support tickets, your revenue performance, then a few development-related checks, like if you have your testing framework in place or not for development. Okay. After having a comprehensive check, and once we have the report available, in a format that we can consume easily, then we are able to identify what could be the challenges that are holding us back, okay, and what could be the opportunities that we can go after. But it will be a data-driven answer instead of just a gut feeling. Let's look at an example from the real life, okay? Now, it can happen any fine day, right? So let's say one fine day we woke up and we found that our sale was dropped, let's say by 40%, right? That creates a panic in the management team, right? And then everyone goes into that RCA mode, and we want to find an answer, right? If we have a framework available, then it will help us get that answer sooner than later, right? And it won't depend on just the gut feeling of one person, right? Now, maybe from that framework, one thing, the funnel map view can help us get the answer here quickly. Okay, let's see how. So before we proceed, let me try to explain this visual. Okay, we can visualize the entire customer experience in this 11-step funnel. Okay, and at each of these steps, actually, we are losing customers. So actually, we get customers to our site. Some of them bounce off from the site. Some of them proceed to browse the catalog. Some of them add items into the cart. Then some of them again proceed further to the checkout steps, and finally a transaction happens and we get a customer. And then starts the post-order experience journey, and if that journey goes really well, then the customer, some of these customers will come back to our funnel, and we call them our repeat customers. Now the point here is we are losing customers at each step of this journey. Now, coming back to that problem of, the sale was dropped one fine day, right? Now, what should we actually be looking at? Now, if we have numbers available for each of these steps, that let's say morning 7 a.m. we got to know that, okay, these are the numbers, these are the drops happening at each of these steps, then obviously the first instinct will be to really try to find an aberration in any of these numbers. And let's say if we find that, okay, there was an significant drop at add to cart. People were not actually adding items into the cart, but they were browsing just enough, our product catalog, right? Then what could be the checks? Okay, now let's say in our blueprint, we have like 6 checks. So most of the problem, if the add to cart is not happening at a given rate, then maybe these checks will help us identify the problem. Okay, it could be the inventory is not in sync between the website and the warehouse. So we should check the sync logs. We should check if our cart APIs were up, and if there was any change in the pin code serviceability list. We'll also check at the traffic source, because different kinds of customer come with different buying intent, right? We'll also check the active promotions and whatnot. But let's say if the drop was at checkout steps, okay, people were actually not moving the checkout, then these are the checks that we will do. And if the drop was, let's say, at order, people were moving to the, let's say, they were logging in to the site to make a purchase, but they were not ending up placing an order, then these could be the checks. Now, the blueprint could be different. Most of the organizations already have some kind of a blueprint, but what happens that most of them have some kind of a mental model instead of having a document, having it documented in some certain format, right? So the idea is that, yes, we should have it in a documented format so that it is accessible to everyone, and that makes the problem solving easy for the entire team, right? Now, doing a retrospective check or doing an RCA is one thing, and the second thing is if we can really respond, how soon can we really respond to it, right? So let's say if sync was not happening and if the designated stakeholders start getting phone calls, right, that, okay, something has broken at the website, then what happens that when phone calls go to a group, then it is hard to miss a business event, right? And that is called proactive alerting. It helps us solve the problem better. So if we can revisit our Murphy's Law, our favorite Murphy's Law, and if we can use our creative freedom to extend it a bit, then it will be something like this, that anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible time, but you should get to know it when it happens, and you should get a chance to fix it ASAP. A monitoring framework helps you with that. Thank you.